Hey everybody, just a quick update before we get into today's episode. Today we're going to show you how to make a Matterport virtual tour with just your mobile phone, not an expensive crazy camera, which is super cool. In the video towards the end, I had this idea. I said, well, what if we just gave away a prize to encourage all of you to do this today? So we're going to do that. All of the contest rules are placed right below. It's super simple. You have until June 18th to go ahead and post a link to your Matterport test in the comments on this video, and then we're going to pick a winner. And what you're going to win is pretty cool. You're going to get a 6-month subscription to Premium Shareables. So for those of you who use our Shareables product, Premium Shareables gives you so much more. It is a paid product, but you're going to get it free for 6 months. And all you have to do is download the app, follow the instructions, make a Matterport test, post a video to that tour in the comments, and then we're going to pick a winner and we're going to announce that winner on next Friday's show. So make sure you do that. And without further ado, here's today's episode. Hello, agentpreneurs, and welcome to episode 55 of the Daily List Report. We've got a really interesting show for you today. This is our second, we'll call it tech review. Last Friday, we reviewed a gimbal, taught you what a gimbal is and why you absolutely have to have this basically $100 device in your toolkit as a real estate agent. Today, we are talking about Matterport. So all of you have seen a Matterport. I've got a Matterport up on the screen right here. It's a great sort of 3D tour that allows consumers to, in essence, step inside a house, right? Some people have called this Google Street View for homes. So I can actually go in the house, I can click around, and these have become, I'd say, increasingly popular during these times as a lot of people, frankly, want to look at a house and get a better sense for it and get serious about it before they actually decide to go inside the house directly. So today I've got a special guest, a new guest, a fellow tech geek and super nerd, and his name is Nick Guardino. And Nick, I'm going to bring you on the screen right now. Nick, why don't you say hello to the agentpreneurs of ListReports?
Great. Hello, everybody. Happy to be here talking to you today.
Fantastic. Hey, Nick, thanks so much for doing this. You know, you geek out on a lot of stuff. You fly drones and, 360 tours. And in this case, this Matterport you recorded. So I've got it up on the screen right now, and we're just sort of panning around a living room here. And frankly, it looks fantastic. But there's something a little bit different about this Matterport than our users may be used to seeing. And what is that? What's the difference here? How did you record this Matterport?
Good question. This one was done actually on my phone.
That's crazy.
Completely on my phone.
That's crazy. I mean, a lot of you listening, right, probably have looked into Matterport, and many of you probably have purchased, Matterport services. Some of you I know actually own a Matterport camera. And Nick, right now, what's the cost of a Matterport camera?
The Matterport Pro 2 camera is $3,400.
$3,400. And you shot this on your phone, and I will tell you, and we were just discussing this, right? I mean, photography, you nerd out on this stuff. I do too. I'm not any good at it, but I can appreciate it. And I looked at this, and the quality of this, frankly, is exceptional, and it's probably imperceptibly different than the pro version for a consumer. And now it's available in the palm of your hands, in essence, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. This is a big step forward for Matterport. And after knowing some people over there and speaking to them for a matter of years, trying to find a way to find a partnership, this has kind of been their true north since they started as a company, which is make 3D tours accessible to all. And I got to say, Randy, I think they knocked it out of the park with this one. The quality is excellent. The interface is strong. It's really simple and seamless. And the product that it puts out on the back end, like you said, is every bit true to life Matterport. It feels like a tour. It has all the same features and bells and whistles. There's very little sacrificed and lost between the phone version and the hardware version. I think it's a great step.
It really is. And I'm showing it on the screen right now, along with your face, Nick, right? So it's got all of the basic features, right? So you can do your floor selector. You can pick, in this case, the first floor or the second floor. You can jump into any of the rooms. You can even do the room measurements, right, Nick?
That's correct. That's correct. Yeah, the way that Matterport was able to do this is they've been running every tour through their algorithm for years and years, and actually using machine learning to figure out how to take images and map them out appropriately. They've only really been able to do this because in conjunction with the images you get from their camera, they were getting laser measurements. So they were able to pair them up and kind of have the computer suss out the size and depth of rooms. Now that they've had enough, I think over 1 million tours generated through there, they can take just the images from your phone, and I believe the precision for an iPhone is within 3 or 4% of true to life measurements. So
Wow.
still really, really accurate.
Well, you know what's interesting about that? On Monday, Nick, we had I had AJ on, and we were talking about a little bit of the future. And if not now, right later this year, the iPads are going to come with lidar built in. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, the new iPad is the first ever portable consumer electronic with LiDAR, which is great.
That's amazing, right? So just so we're clear, right? Why don't you talk about? We've got a few options. You got the pro camera, you've got a 360 camera, you've got your mobile phone. So what are some of the
hmm
trade-offs between those three options if somebody wants to do a Matterport?
hmm Well, I think to start, Randy, as always, you get what you pay for. So, my intent here is not to speak poorly on the Pro 2 camera. It's a really, really solid piece of tech, and it does exactly what it's supposed to do. It takes high quality images. It takes a lot of them. It stitches them into a 130 megapixel sphere, which, for reference, is more than 10 times the resolution of an iPhone photo. And it
Wow.
actually does something called bracketing. So it shoots an underexposed version, a properly exposed version, and an overexposed, and overlays them in a way to create an image that's really, really stellar. So the quality you get out there is excellent, and the precision when you're measuring a room is excellent. However, it's rather expensive, and for a lot of agents and consumers, it's probably outside of their budget. You then have the 360 cam, which is a standalone camera that uses a spherical lens to capture a 360-degree photo. That was kind of the intermediary step between something with lasers and something that shoots flat images like an iPhone. And that's a great setup for people who want something that's a little bit simpler to use, maybe than the traditional Pro 2 camera, and are willing to sacrifice some of the precision for measurement and depth perception. Those cameras are quick and easy. You put it on a tripod in the middle of the room, you walk away from it, use your phone as a remote, and you hit scan, and they're fast and reliable. And now, finally, as of last week, you have your iPhone. And the way that it works on the interface, Randy, is you stand in the middle of the room and you aim your camera at one wall and it shows a dot, and you line your circle up on your phone with the dot, scans it, and then it tells you to move your camera up and down. And you do that about maybe 10 times in a circle, and then it will stitch all those to a sphere. So you have the three options from a user experience standpoint. The first two, the Pro 2 cam and the 360 cam, are maybe the simplest to use as far as
Yeah,
actually capturing. But once again, the best camera is the one that's in your pocket, which is usually a smartphone. So if you prefer ease of
absolutely.
use and you don't mind a little bit of quality loss, iPhone has really produced a great tour.
So then again, so we're clear, right? If you invest the $3,500 into the Pro 2 camera, you're going to get really high quality Matterports, obviously, but you're also going to get really high quality stills. So you actually, in essence, replaces having a photographer come in, and because of the bracketing, you're going to get these really nice quality HDR photos. So there's some advantages there, but obviously there's a trade off in cost. Now on the iPhone, are you able to get stills as well, or you just get the Matterport Tour?
You can always cheat stills out of it. So you can open up a Matterport tour and take a screen grab. Fact of the matter is, it's not a native function of using the iPhone interface to generate a tour. So it's not going to be nearly as high resolution as when you use the Pro 2 camera, but
Yeah.
it's definitely possible.
That makes sense. Interesting. So, Nick, you were kind enough to actually fire up the app here. So, if you don't mind, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull you up, I'm going to pull the app up, and I'm going to have you sort of give everybody a little bit of a tour of how the app actually functions and, frankly, how easy this is to do. So,
Sure.
you're up.
Great. So as everyone can see here, the home screen, this is the Matterport Capture app. And the home screen is really simple. You have an option in the bottom right to add a new tour. And then you have a collection of tours that you have taken previously. The one you can see on your screen now is the 500 Quail's Nest Court tour. That's my parents' home in Roseville, California. And this is the first capture I did last week. I'll open that up to show you what the interface looks like. What you can see here is you can actually see the first floor of my parents' house from an aerial view. Each one of these numbered dots is a location that I did a scan, which once again, I stood in that spot, I held up my phone, I snapped a series of pictures as it guided me through, I spun around in a circle and did that a handful more times, and that creates one of these spheres. You can see here in these spheres, I have a preview of it in the app that is just one location, which just pans in a circle, and I have a whole bunch of them. Now, the great thing about Matterport, and one of the reasons they got market share early, is their algorithm for stitching together these photos is best in class. So I don't need to tell the app where I was when I took the photo. I just need to take scans that are sufficiently close that Matterport can recognize the images in them and tie them together using the actual photos rather than any extra information I'd need to feed the system. A couple things you can see here, interestingly enough, is in this area, you see all these scattered lines of light
Yeah.
inside of this black frame. What was happening there is I was actually scanning on the landing between the two floors of my parents' house. And it was actually shooting between the rails for the stairs. So you can see how the camera had perspective through the rails and measured more depth between them, but also wherever the rail was blocking the light, you couldn't see past that. So that gives you an idea of how the system works. Anything the camera can see, it can then map out and create a 3D spot for. And anything the camera can't see is going to continue to be kind of an unknown area, not part of the tour, like anything beyond the edges of these walls. The last thing I think I want to point out here, Randy, is you see these little markers all along that say inside and have that
Yes.
little box pattern. Those are windows. The only manual step you need to do besides scanning is you need to label windows and mirrors, which is actually really simple in the app. And that helps the camera figure out what to do with images that are not quite normal. Mirrors and windows obviously give reflections. And if you're shooting into a mirror, it might think you have another room on the other side, which unfortunately is not going to help you sell the home. So
Right.
when you label those things, it helps the app figure it out. All in all, Randy, for the two-story house, my parents' house is about 3,100 square feet. I did just over 60 scans, which might have been slight overkill. I believe the rule of thumb that Matterport publishes is that they do about one scan per 100 square feet.
One scan. So you maybe did twice as many as was recommended. But you're always an
Mhm.
overachiever, Nick, so that makes sense to me.
It certainly doesn't hurt to have more scans. It's just more data to deal with and more points to peer from inside the home. But in this case, I think it was probably a little overkill.
And so, I've pulled back up here on the screen, Nick, the actual Matterport, right? So I'm
Mhm.
moving around now, looking at, the kitchen and the windows that you mentioned, right? These are the things. So when you take these photos, do you just basically sort of drag where a window is on the image so that you could instruct the software?
That's correct. Yeah, once you start taking the scans, it will build your floor plan, and then you have an option right inside the app to just basically hit options, add window, add mirror, and you just basically draw a line right on it, and it will figure out the rest for you. So very simple to use.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So, Nick, I mean, all in, how long do you think this took you? And obviously, this was your first one, and it looks fantastic. How long did this take?
This one took me about an hour. I think a general rule of thumb is 1 minute per scan. But
Okay.
once again, that's because I scanned quite a bit. So a really simple way to think about it is take the square footage of the home you intend to scan, divide it by 100, and that's about the amount of time in minutes you'll need to scan the entire place.
So that's amazing, right? So for a 2,000 square foot house, in theory, you could do this in 20 minutes. The software then does all the work, right? So it stitches everything
Hmm.
together and it outputs this amazing Matterport with, and again, it's full featured, right? So you get everything right on your phone.
That's correct. Yeah, I would say there's some technique that's acquired over time. I took another scan after this, and there are some things to consider. For example, for tight corridors and hallways,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's harder for the scan to match up where it's at. So you'll notice in the app, if you scan a living room and then you walk to the other side of the house and scan, there's
Mm-hmm.
no point of reference to tie those together.
I
So you
see.
always need to only move, within some visible range of where you started. But if you get that kind of pattern and technique down, it's really really simple to do. Like you said, about 100 square feet per minute.
Interesting. Now, one of the things that people probably remember about Matterports are those points, right, that you can click on to sort of walk through the house. Are
Hmm.
those defined by the scans that you take? So if you do more scans, do you get more points, or does that happen automatically?
Yeah, so those are scan points. So that's exactly right. However many scans I take are points where you could stand in the house, and those are great because they give you perspective. If you went
Mm-hmm.
into a bedroom and scanned on one side, and you didn't on the other, then no one could stand on the other side and perhaps see the closet that might be just behind you.
Right.
So the more the better, definitely. But for most cases, two scans in a bedroom is sufficient. 3 to 4 scans in a living space is sufficient, and the rest from there is pretty easy to stitch.
Now, Nick, let's talk about equipment. Let's talk about price, right? So,
Hmm.
so everyone's clear this was shot on an iPhone 11 Pro. Is that right?
That's correct.
And did you shoot it, for those of you who don't know, the iPhone 11 Pro, like a lot of the newest cameras, have multiple lenses. So there's a 2x zoom lens, there's a 1x lens, and basically a wide angle, they call it half X, I think. So
Mhm.
did you shoot these on 1x or wide angle? How did you record these? And is there a recommended approach?
Yeah, so if you have a wide angle lens, a half X, as Apple calls it, Matterport defaults to that. And that's only because it cuts down the amount of scans you have to do. For
Right.
example, for any vertical segment of a 3D scan, when you're using the half X lens, you scan once in front of you, once up at about 40 degrees, and once down at 40 degrees. If you have a more zoomed in lens, like a 1X, on maybe an older version of the iPhone, you're probably going to have to do 4 vertical scans to capture a full 170-ish degrees of data that Matterport needs.
Okay.
So the new iPhones will make it maybe just a little bit quicker. If you have an older one, you should be able to achieve the same effect, but with a few extra scans. And they don't give you the option to swap between them. So that's kind of nice for simplicity's sake, that it just defaults to the one that's going to give you the best output.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And, just to nerd out a little bit more here, Nick, right? So last Friday we had a video where I reviewed a gimbal, which is just such a great device. And
Mm-hmm.
gimbals do panoramas, and it's actually fun to watch. You push the button and then they move in all of the angles. And you talked about 360 cameras and how they do the rotation correctly. Do you know, are
Mm-hmm.
there any gimbals that work with Matterport, or maybe not yet?
I haven't seen any yet. So the Matterport Pro 2 camera has actually a built-in rotation engine in there. And since it has three lenses that are angled in different directions, it doesn't need to angle up or down at all. So you put it on a tripod and it rotates on its own. Today, for the iPhone version, you actually need to do the up and down aiming manually by hand.
Okay.
And for the 360 camera, 360 cameras actually capture full 360 data without moving at all. So that's a
Right.
single scan.
Right.
Um, However, it's perfectly feasible, exactly like you said, to imagine that there's going to be some sort of integrated solution or maybe a partnership solution for Matterport that allows you to put your camera on a gimbal or on some sort of specialized tripod that will auto scan.
Yeah.
Um, it seems like the next step in
It
kind of the
really
hardware
does.
evolution.
I
Mhm.
mean, clearly, the next step in the direction that we're headed is to just make this more and more accessible with our mobile phone, right? So,
Mhm.
very little equipment, you can do it on your own. The quality is, frankly, I mean, it's amazing. So
It
let's talk
is.
about cost, Nick.
Sure.
Obviously, what Matterport wants, I imagine, is that every home in America has a Matterport, right? So it makes sense that
Mhm.
they would be pushing not $3,500 cameras, but use your own phone and record an amazing tour. So what does this cost for our agents?
Sure. So Matterport actually switched their model to a SaaS model, I think about a year and a half ago,
We should
around
explain
January
SaaS
last
for
year.
our audience here.
Sure, yeah. So SaaS is software as a subscription, software as a service, I'm sorry. So what happens is you pay a monthly fee for them to basically allow you to use their software. And that includes everything from capturing the tour, creating the tour using their algorithm, and then hosting it online for others to see. And you pay a flat rate per month. So there's no big upfront cost to buy the software upfront like you used to when you buy Photoshop and things like that.
Right.
Um, which is really great because it creates a low barrier to entry. And when Matterport switched that model, their tools became quite a bit cheaper as well. So actually, this tour that we looked at today, Randy, was 100% free. The iPhone app that I captured on, the Matterport Capture app, is free. I made a free account, which allows me to do up to one tour, and I used my iPhone, which I would have purchased anyways, so no additional purchase there.
Amazing.
Um, if you're an agent and you have more than one listing at a time, or you want to keep your entire catalog of listings available for your website, you'll need to upgrade your subscription to allow for more listings to be hosted. So I think, Randy, the way that it goes is your first tour is free. That's your free account. If you want to have additional properties available, you can pay $10 a month and get up to 5 listings hosted at
Okay.
any time. So if you only want to keep your active inventory online, for many agents, that's sufficient. They won't have more than 5 active listings on the market. They can keep them, and as they sell them, clear them out of their Matterport account and add new ones in. And beyond that, there are steps up. I think there's 10 for about $25, all the way up to you can have, I think, a couple hundred listings for a couple $100. Um, all things considered, most people are paying $12.99 for Netflix. So considering how powerful Matterport is, and they claim to drive a lot more traffic to pages with their tours, it seems like a worthwhile investment.
Well, that's yeah, and that's the point, right? Is that we've been encouraging our agents seemingly every day on this show to get themselves out there, get their content out there in more ways, and allow people to explore properties, because you can get a really good sense for this house, right? So frankly, I'd love to move into your parents' house, Nick, to be honest, if I'm being
As would
honest
I.
there. And, I have a really good sense for that before I go there. So that saves everybody time. What do you think, Nick, in terms of keeping these things live, right? So great, you can have one free that's live at any time, but as sort of evergreen content that's out there in the world, do you think that that's a good idea? Like, what would you do if you were one of our agents?
That's a great question. I'm a big fan. I mean, as you've alluded to, I love technology, so I'm used to spending money on it, and it's something that I enjoy doing. So it's both a hobby, and in this case, it'd be a professional benefit as
Yeah.
well. However, I think for your average agent, having the $25 plan where you can have 10 active tours would allow you to keep your active inventory up for people searching and linking through from search sites. And I also think every agent has some showstopper homes that they've sold that they just love the design, they love the aesthetic, and it really
Yes.
helps round out their portfolio. So I think somewhere in the middle for most agents it is probably a worthwhile investment from kind of a value standpoint, and would also help for the drive more business, get more leads stuff if they have their own website and their own branded content. A Matterport tour is a great asset to have to say, hey, I sold this, and if this
Yes.
reminds you of your home, I can do that for you as well.
I think that's a great point. I think that's great advice, Nick. In particular, given the price point, right? When we're talking about $10 to $25 a month for something that, frankly, is pretty incredible, and we know is going to drive more viewership and more serious buyers into your properties. So I think that's great advice. So
Hmm.
Nick, last thing I want to address here quickly is, I'm sure there's some agents who are listening who are like, "Oh, great, you got a tech guy on. This guy says it's easy, right?
Hmm.
Whoop-de-doo." Is it? I mean, it seems easy, right? Like, I think all of us as consumers have gone on vacation and sat in front of the Grand Canyon or whatever, right, with a camera and just basically done this and taken a pano. So if you've
Hmm.
taken a pano, you can make a Matterport. Is that fair assumption?
I
Assessment,
think
sorry.
I think so. Yeah. When I was taking the tour of my parents' home, my mom was mostly concerned that the house was clean and well represented. So she was staying far away from me, making sure every room looked great. But my dad was standing right next to me, and he was fascinated with it, and uh, and he picked it up pretty quick. I don't want to comment and say that my dad is or isn't tech savvy, but
Sure.
he's certainly not an enthusiast like myself. I think conceptually, it's very easy to figure out. I would say the only thing, Randy, is that with all new technology, there are unforeseen bugs and things that arise.
Yeah.
There was at one point when I was scanning when the camera just appeared black. I quit the app and reopened it, and the camera appeared black. And all I did was quit it and reopen it again. It worked fine. These are all things that will get worked out with time. I think what I would encourage any agent who maybe seems a little bit less than enthusiastic about learning new technology like this is be patient. Unplug it and plug it back in is still a great solution in 2020.
Yes.
So when it comes to your phone, if anything doesn't seem right, quit it and start it over again. And most of the time that resolves issues. Matterport has had great support. I think they really want people to understand and make it as easy as possible. So at the end of the day, with a free account, I feel like most people would be remiss to not at least give it a try, maybe in their own home. And if it feels something like, if it feels comfortable and natural to them, then absolutely invest. And it's a month-to-month subscription, so you're not locked into a contract. Now is the best time ever to learn new things, right? We all have kind of a change of pace here that allows for things
Couldn't
like
agree
this.
more. And there's a free version of this too, right? So I
Hmm.
mean, I think the best advice is, what's the name of the app again?
It's Capture, Matterport Capture.
Matterport Capture. So we'll post a link to this in the comments. Download Matterport Capture, sign up for your free account, and make one for your house, right? You don't have to publish it and send that out in the world, right? But you live somewhere, right? So your house, your apartment, whatever, make one and try it out and just make it happen. Just go do it and go try it. You're going to learn a lot from that experience. And, it took Nick an hour, maybe it takes you 2 hours, but the reality is that after you do these a couple times, you're probably going to get this down into that, what was it, a minute per 100 square feet, something like that?
Exactly.
Perfect. That's fantastic. Nick, is there anything that I missed that we should talk about here? I appreciate you, A, doing this tour, and B, sharing this with everybody, because I think it's a really powerful thing that doesn't really cost much or anything
Hmm.
if you use the free version.
Yeah, no, I don't think so, Randy. I think we got the gist of it. With everything, there's edge cases and there's learning to be done. I've only done one, I guess, two tours now. So, far be it from me to say that I'm an expert on the subject. However, it was easy for me. I hope the same is for you guys. And if you do feel comfortable sharing your tours, I think it's a great chance to do so. Matterport loves seeing their stuff out there. It helps them improve their software and realize shortcomings. And other agents who see you doing the same thing will be encouraged to do so. We can all really help each other learn new technology in this time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that makes sense. And Nick, that just made me think of something. So if you've made it this far into the video, here's what I'm going to offer you. Go get the app, go sign up for the account, and put a link to your tour in the comments, and we'll do a drawing for a free premium shareables account. So for those of you who don't know, you guys love our shareables. We've got premium shareables, an amazing paid product. We'll do a drawing for a free account. So I hope I don't get in trouble for that, but we'll figure out how to make it work. Go make your Matterport tour, put a link to it in the comments, and we'll be in touch and we'll figure that out, okay? We'll have one winner. I guess I should have checked on this beforehand, but we're going to draw one winner for a free premium shareables account. How does that sound, Nick?
And I'll put mine in there, Randy. So if no one else applies, I win by default. So
that's fair. Very, very good point. That's awesome. Okay. Terms and conditions may apply. We'll figure it out later. But the point is, go out and make that content. There's no excuses, really. You have a phone. It doesn't matter if it's not an iPhone 11 Pro. You have a phone. You got a free app that you can download. You can try this out. You can post it in, and let's learn together. As Nick said, Nick's way better at this stuff than I am, frankly. But we don't pretend to be professionals and experts. We're enthusiasts. This is our business, and our job, frankly, is to come to you with things that we see that we think that you should be trying. And the beauty of this platform, I think, Nick, is that we get to learn together, and that's kind of fun.
It certainly is. Absolutely.
All right, Nick. Hey, Nick, thanks so much for joining today. I'm definitely going to have you back on so we can nerd out on some other technology products. I'm sure there's some great ones we can cover.
Great. I look forward to it, Randy. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks, Nick. So that was pretty cool, right? So no excuses. Go make this happen. Go out and record this. Go out and record a Matterport. Post it in the comments. Try this stuff out. If you missed our first sort of tech review, it was last Friday, so check it out on our YouTube page. If you like the content, make sure you subscribe. We covered a gimbal. If you don't know what a gimbal is, you didn't watch the video, you should watch it. It's a $150 device. It's going to make your video quality look absolutely incredible. So again, if you like this kind of stuff, if you want us to keep covering technology products and tips and tricks and apps and tools and whatever, let us know in the comments, as you did last Friday. That's really helpful so we know that we're making the best content for you. So until then, have a great weekend, and we'll see you on Monday.